Welcome, gents. In the midst of things in Pietermaritzburg, dump is burning once again. Welcome back. Okay, so today we'll be looking at minimum wages. Okay, looking at a data response question that was obviously given to you guys. Let's get straight into it. Study the graph below, which is of the supply and demand for manual labor on the fictitious Bella Vista farm outside of Pietermaritzburg. So what does the graph look like? It's a minimum wage graph. Okay, on the horizontal axis, we've got the quantity of labor. On the vertical axis, we've got the wage rate. Okay, and then we've been given some figures there in terms of, the different pricing on the vertical axis and the different quantities on the horizontal axis. Okay, let's get straight into it. Question number 1. Okay, at what wage rates will the quantity demanded of labor on Bella Vista farm equal the quantity supplied? Okay, so very simple. We want to find where equilibrium is, and equilibrium is determined by the intersection of demand and supply. So we can see demand and supply interact at that point there at the 10 units and at a wage rate of 1,600 Rand. So at equilibrium, if left to its own devices, the markets will supply 10 units of labor at 1,600 Rand. Easy question, 1 mark. All right, second question. How many units of labor will the firm employ if the minimum wage rate is implemented? Okay, so let's say government comes through and says, listen, you have to implement minimum wage. You are no longer paying the employees 1,600 Rand. You must now pay them 2,775, which is the minimum wage. Okay, as you can see there, right? So the question is, how many units of labor, okay, will the firm employ? So remember, we're looking at a minimum wage graph here. And this graph shows the demand of labor and the supply of labor. So we as the people that are working or the people that are supplying the labor, demand is demanded by the people employing the labor. So your employer. So Maritzburg College would be my employer, right? And they'll be demanding labor for me. So the question is, how many units of labor will the firm employ or demand, okay, at a wage rate of 2,775, which is the minimum wage rate. So we simply go see where it cuts or touches the demand curve at that point, and they'll employ 5 units. All right, so why would a government implement a minimum wage? There are various reasons why governments would want to implement minimum wages. I mean, one of the major reasons was to make sure that employers don't exploit employees. Okay, so that word exploitation, okay, that's the main reason why government wants to implement a minimum wage. Otherwise, if employers were left to their own devices, what would they do? They'd hire as many people at as low of a cost as possible to ensure that they can then provide a product at a lower cost. Okay, but to the expense or at the expense of who? The workers of the firm. Okay, so government then comes in and says, well, actually, we're going to implement a minimum wage to make sure that these people can at least afford a decent standard of living, decent life, come out of poverty. And in order for them to come out of all these things, they need to at least have a certain amount of money that is not less than 2,775 paid to them each month. Okay, so what does the arrow line AB on the graph represent? So if you have a look at that arrow, it's between the demand and the supply curve, okay, and it's at that point of minimum wage. Okay, basically that's saying at 2,775 Rand minimum wage, firms will demand 5 units. However, us, the people that want to work, will actually be supplying or want to supply 15 units of labor. So there's actually a surplus of labor there or an oversupply of labor. Okay, so any of those two would have given you the marks. At 2,775, people want to supply 15 units of labor as opposed to 5 that is actually demanded by the firms, which causes a surplus or an oversupply of labor. All right, explain the overall effects of the minimum wage on farm workers on Bella Vista farm. So very simple, 4 marks here. If you look at the overall effects, if you think about the people that are actually receiving the minimum wage, okay, their livelihoods are going to improve. Their standards of living are going to improve. Their family situations are going to improve. They might come out of these poverty cycles that they might be involved in right now, right? Implementing a minimum wage will actually assist the farm workers, ensuring that they get more money at the end of the month, ensuring that they can then improve their lives. However, implementing the same minimum wage also decreases the number of farmers that are actually going to be working at Bella Vista. The farmer or the employer might decide that actually I can't afford this price anymore. It's almost double the price that I was paying per worker, right? I'm going to cut back on the number of people that I'm employing. So it's actually got a twofold effect. One that's positive for the people that stay employed, and negative for the people that are actually going to lose their jobs because of this. And if you have a look at this graph here, I mean, you can tell me how many people are actually going to lose their jobs. That's right, 5, right? So for the 5 people that stay on, they get more money, increased standard of living. However, for the 5 people that don't, life is tough. Okay, gents, thank you.